It is 5:30 and I will call us to order. We do have a scheduled executive session, but before we go into that, I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda as follows, to add a public comment period, and to add a brief executive session under 1 VSA 313A3. And that would be after the administrative report. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Liz. All right. All those in favor of amending the agenda as noted, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now I would entertain a motion to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. Is there such a motion?
What is it in reference to? What is the finding?
This is under contracts. This is our first executive session on the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there a second?
Just think. Discussion.
Yep.
I just want to be clear. So we're entering executive session because it's a contract involving confidential employee.
Correct. Well,
Okay.
it's a contract involving an employee and we do not discuss contracts in public, which is why we have an executive session.
Just wanted to be completely clear on what we were going in for. So yes.
Nope.
That was it.
All right. So all those in favor? Oh, we already did that. Sorry. So is there a motion?
No, Carrie, we actually didn't.
We didn't. Sorry, y'all. Yeah.
Motioned and seconded by Liz. Now we have to vote.
All those in favor of finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session as listed on the agenda under 1 VSA 313A1A contracts. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'm going to give it to Liz. Is there a second?
I second that.
I'll give that one to Michelle. You guys are on point tonight. All right. All those in favor of entering executive session under 1 VSA 313A1A contracts, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? All right. We will enter executive session at 5:33. I will put people in the waiting room. I would expect we would be out no later than 6. So into the waiting room, you will be going. So now we have a consent agenda. We have our approval of minutes and approval of superintendent's goals. Is there a motion?
So
Very
moved.
do one at a time.
We can, if you like, approval of minutes of December 14th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Liz. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the goal of the approval of minutes of December 14th. All those in favor? Any comments, questions, critiques? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Okay, moving on to approval of superintendent's goals. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Liz. Any comments on that? Those were discussed at the past 2 meetings. Hearing none. All those in favor of the approval of the superintendent's goals, say aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? Okay, now we're going to have public comment. So to catch people up who might not have been here at the beginning, we did add a brief executive session that we will have shortly. after the administrative report and public comment. So is there any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Going once. Public comment. Anything not on the agenda going twice? All right, final call for public comment. Hearing none, we will move on to the administrative report.
Okay, so for the report tonight, I'll provide kind of a framework to the approach with this budget and highlight some of the items in the budget as I did last night. So in this budget, you will see 2 additional ELL positions, which relates to the influx of Afghan refugees, which has been a terrific addition to our schools. We have a technology investment in cybersecurity, facility manager that we've invested in, focus in many capital investments around air quality control systems, ventilation, energy efficient heating systems. Last year, as you all know, we made significant investments in instructional coaching, academic support, teachers, social workers, clinicians, counselors, behavior interventionists, key investments to support our improvement plan / action plan. Of course, continuous development of multi-layered systems of support, EST systems and development to continue to support the academic, social, emotional, and behavior needs of our students. We've also continued to support the diversity, equity, inclusion office. We added a diversity equity coach to the fold last year, and we will continue that work this year in this budget for next year. Continue to support teacher leader stipends at each school in our district. So we're building a system to support that work so that it becomes daily work. So those positions continue to fall in line with our action plan. And that's kind of the overview, the framework. And Frank will dig into more of the details of the numbers.
Before we go there, we should do the brief executive session that we added, sorry. So is there a motion to enter executive session? I would like to stress brief, please, under VSA 313A3. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to put everybody else in the waiting room. And guys, I really want to try to keep this to 15 minutes. And we need to invite in Frank and Mark. Thank you. Whoop. Is someone else doing the waiting room?
I'm going from the.
Yay. All right, we are out of executive session at 6:34 with no action taken. At this point, I think we are moving on to the budget. So little preface here, remember, or I was reminded last night that the term budget season is a misnomer. It's always budget season. It's important for us as board members to remember that. We always have a fiduciary responsibility. With every presentation made, with every position, it's year round. We should always be weighing the value against the cost. And remembering that our goal is to provide the best outcome for our students. So the step that we are taking today is not set in stone. This is not a one and done, move on. This is a get the supervisory union budget under our belts so that we can pass it along to our respective districts, giving them the time that they need in order to then sell it to their voters. We can at any time look at this again and make changes. We do that constantly. We are always throughout the year adding new programs. We have to find the money somewhere. So sometimes we cut corners and not cut corners, but we trim elsewhere so that we can do new things. So please don't feel like this is we sign this budget and that's it. No changes can be made. We are a board that meets every month and we can make the changes as we need to. So I will turn it over, I guess, to Frank, who probably needs sharing authority. Take it away, Frank.
All righty. Let's see, I didn't bring any new materials. So if you'd like, Carrie, I can reconnect to Zoom. But I wasn't connected. Happy to do that if you think that's helpful. But basically, I was going to say that the same document we reviewed last week remains unchanged.
This is the big thick one?
Yeah, do you think it would be helpful if I
Do
connect?
people feel like you're gonna need, board members, let me poll you. Do you feel like you need to be pinpointed on a document, or do you all have your documents?
I'm fine.
Carrie,
Yes.
Carrie, my question is whether the public would benefit. So
Okay, I don't mind. Yeah, it
You
just will
wanna-
take a moment. Yeah.
Give us a minute.
All right, here we go. And Paul, you'll probably see me coming in the room here in a little bit, or
See if I can get you faster.
okay.
Paul, we can race.
I don't have.
Oh, you don't have? Oh, you're not. Oh,
All right.
there you are, and you are in.
Okay, that didn't take too long. Or it
thank you,
says-
Frank.
Yeah, yes, no trouble. Okay, so, and it sounds like I'm still got an audio.
Turn your volume off.
Got it. Okay. Good. And now we'll do a share screen. Probably this one. Okay, one moment. I like that one. Okay. So here's the document that we reviewed last week. And it's the compilation of the several weeks that we've met where we've looked at each of our service areas in the supervisory union budget. So in total here, we have the 31,253,000 that's down 3.2% versus the current budget that the board approved this time last year. Our four functional or service areas are the administrative and transportation budget, which also includes the English language learner group, the curriculum and assessment, diversity and equity, and technology. So it's all of those in that first group that you may recall we reviewed. That was our first budget meeting review. 5 million is the total there. Mark mentioned several of the new positions that are part of both legislative requirements, like the facility manager for supervisory union wide, and then also the addition of 2 teachers for our English language learner group. So that's part of why that group is up somewhat significantly. It also includes an HR support position, as we discussed. may recall. The largest group by far in this budget proposal is the special education services. And again, by Vermont statute, the supervisory union is required to coordinate and administer special education services for the entire supervisory union. And it's organized by school age, which is the 16,270,000, and then the pre-K special ed services, what you see there is 1,155,000 for a total of 17,426,000. And that is up substantially. You probably recall us talking about the very significant increase in our services as identified in some individual education plans. So we just a brief reminder of the discussion that we had on that topic. That was our meeting, our second meeting. The grants component, so just moving down the page here, the grants component is also a very significant part of what the supervisory union does in terms of coordinating, acquiring, and then administrating the federal grants. So you see 10,071,000 in the current budget is being reduced to 6,408,000. So again, we spoke at length about the ESSER funding being phased out. So we are going from
shut the fuck up.
Hold on.
We all set there?
Hold on.
So we're going from the 10 million in the current budget period to the 6.8 million in fiscal year 24. And then we still will retain a significant number of federal grants as we have had in prior years, but the $9.5 million ESSER 3 grant will be totally phased out in fiscal year 25. So this reduction reflects that diminishing resource. And again, we reviewed that, but we can glad to revisit that if folks have questions. And then finally, our fourth kind of service group in the supervisory union central office here is the food service. And then again, this is a statutory Vermont legislature requiring supervisory unions to coordinate and administer food services for all the schools in the supervisory union. And this is reflecting that fairly significant inflation that everyone has seen in their,
I can anybody else not here?
we're good to proceed.
I think we're good to proceed.
Okay.
I'm gonna be careful who I let in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
Sorry,
So-
guys.
This proposal includes 193 employees for the supervisory union. That's actually 5 employees fewer than the current budget that we're in now. And the fewer employees are associated with the ESSER funding primarily, but to some extent, some other positions. I think the other thing I had mentioned before, and I do have a data sheet if folks wanted to see it. Enrollment is relatively stable. The Agency of Ed has given us a preliminary average daily membership data sheet. So just for our resident students, I've mentioned this current year, the average daily membership for the whole supervisory union was 2,415. And the current preliminary number is 2,475. And that's just resident students. So like if you were at the Windham Southeast School District meeting, those figures include tuition, non-resident students. So those are a little bit different. Mark had emphasized, I think, the overview in terms of budget impact, cost drivers in Mark's comments, but as we have already discussed in previous meetings, the largest increases, as you see on page 1 here, are the costs associated with meeting our
hold on one
students'
sec, they
IEP.
lost sound. Can you guys hear us? Anybody in Zoom
I
land?
can hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you.
We
Kelly,
can
are
now,
you-
but we lost for briefly.
okay, all right, keep going, sorry.
Okay.
So
So
be a tech night.
we mentioned the largest cost driver on the upside. It was the meeting our students with IEP needs in this proposal. Health insurance is up 12.7 as part of the state health commissioners negotiations process. Our collective bargaining agreements on average are up 5% for the fiscal year 24. But the reason why the budget is down, this 3.2%, is because of the reduction in the federal grant spending. And that's what you see there on page 1 there that we've just reviewed. So I think that kind of recaps a lot of what we have done, and I'm glad to address any questions.
Questions from the board? Raise your hand. Michelle.
Yeah, I've been following along pretty well. I think there was just one remaining question. I know we had sent some questions out on paper about grant funding with the administrator coach position. Could you just go over that with us and explain it to us well?
Sure. So if you have your detailed document there, and Michelle, I know you had someone pick up a copy.
Yeah. Thank you.
If we went to page 79 in the big document, and fortunately we have Paul Smith here. He's going to be able to give us a little more insight into any of the details. But the principal coach mentor position is on page 79 in your package. It's part of the Title IIA grant, and so I've almost scrolled to that page. Here it is, right there. I don't think Google lets you turn the page. Is that right? I'd have to download.
It does not.
Yeah, I'd have to download it.
Everybody turn your heads.
Yeah, so I can do that. Do you have it, Michelle? Do you need, you got your hard copy there that you picked up the other day?
I have the like the shorter 20-page one on hand. The other
Okay.
it was on page 17, I think, of that shorter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad to pull that file up and
Information.
yeah, I can pull that file up here, and we don't have to turn our heads. And Paul, while I'm doing that, if you wouldn't mind, just talk about the criteria for Title IIA and school improvement.
Sure. Title IIA is part of federal programs funds. It also includes Title I and Title IV. Title IIA is specifically professional development. Used to be called Eisenhower funds. It's been in the consolidated federal programs for many, many years. And we use it for professional development, including one of the math coaches, and as you're asking about the principal coach, the administrator coach, that position. We've funded that position for several years now, felt like it was a good investment in terms of as principals have changed positions and moved from assistant principal to principal, having someone there to provide a little continuity, coaching support has been, sort of is aligned really well with the purposes of the 2A grant.
Okay, and so I do have that document up here, and let me make it a little easier to observe. And so I do the.
And Frank, while you're doing that, I guess the other thing that I would say is all of the research of which I am aware indicates that school leadership is critical in terms of good outcomes for students. And if we are about good outcomes for students, we need to make sure that administrators, specifically building principals, have support that they need in order to do their best work. And so, sort of our sense is this is a good investment in terms of making sure that we get good outcomes for students.
Tim has his hand up.
Just to get a better understanding of what this position is, you said it's part-time. Is it 40%, 50%? Does it come with benefits? What are the hour requirements and all? Just details like that.
Yes, it's basically a school year position and considered full-time. So here's our financial statement here in the kind of rotated version.
How'd you do that?
Well, it's the actual PDF on my hard drive.
Okay. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe something we don't.
I thought you
And-
said it was part-time.
How do I get this thing? It's
Isn't it
essentially a full-time
Is it a full?
school year.
Working full time.
Oh,
School
wow.
year. Yeah, for school year. And
For the school year, so
Yes.
it's not a 12-month
it's
position.
it's not necessarily a 12 months, but it's a professional position that, basically responds to the need, and the need has been great. So here we are on page 79, and I'm having trouble getting rid of the Zoom box there. I don't know how to do it on my screen. It's obliterating my page. So anyways, here it is. Page 79, there it is. Title 2A, and you see the admin coach position, folks, right here. So 39,800 is the proposed salary. You see it's been relatively flat over the years. There's the associated benefits. Health insurance plans have, they're a substantial portion of our compensation now, and that's been part of the Health Commission's work in the last 3 years. But that's it. There's no additional compensation there. It's just a standard employment contract, non-union position, professional non-union position.
So of that roughly $85,000 expense, how much of it is covered by the grant funds?
That's the entire expense right there.
All of it is.
100%. Yeah.
All right, so additional questions. Again, we're trying to possibly get to tonight a motion to pass a $31,253,290 budget. Other questions? Tim, your hand's up. Is it still up, or you have another question? Or
Down.
did you did not lower it?
Down.
Other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Oh, David, I see your hand up. So questions from the public. David, you are recognized.
Thank you. I can't see the sheet anymore, but there's a $25,000 at the bottom of that section for, or maybe it was LTD or something. Can you explain what that is?
Sure, yeah, that's a reference to the indirect cost rate. So I'll share the screen again. So with all the federal grants, supervisory unions are encouraged to utilize what's called an indirect cost reimbursement rate. And what that is, that's, you see the descriptor there, David, indirect expense?
Yes.
Title 2A, yeah, this is all regulated by the Agency of Education. Paul and I review the allocation of all of the federal funds, and we can apply for up to about 3% of the federal grant funds. It doesn't have to correlate with a particular grant, but in total, the Agency of Ed would expect that we would be asking for that reimbursement.
And that's so you expect $25,000 worth of indirect expenses in the coaches' activities?
What that does is that amount of resource essentially reduces the assessment to the districts. It's a revenue source to the general operating fund.
It's not specifically tagged to the admin coaches' compensation. It's a general indirect cost. Essentially, all of the work that, say, Jody Nutting does on all of our federal grants, this is how we capture some of the work that she does and get some revenue for that.
As an example,
she gets part of that 25,000.
He does not. No, this is not associated with the admin coach. This is associated with general operating expenses for the district.
Yeah, so it's an expense to the grant, but it's a revenue to the supervisory union. As I said, it reduces the assessment. So if we didn't have that 25,000, then the Windham Southeast School District assessment, along with Vernon's assessment, when you put them together, would be higher by 25,000. Yeah.
But I'm still not understanding what you use it for.
It's just like David, you know, in the general operating budget of the school district, and when we use fund balance to reduce the tax rate, it's exactly the same concept, except a SU does not set a tax rate, they have to assess costs. So it's the same idea where you are applying a revenue source to reduce the the financial liability to the districts.
Yeah, I guess I'm not, and maybe it's just late, but I'm not, it seems like that would be in the revenue line.
It
This
is.
the expenditure line, so I'm still not clear what it gets, does it ever get spent, or is it just an accounting trick?
It is in the revenue line. Yeah, just like when we're in the.
I understand it's in the revenue line, but the expenses generally list what the money's spent on, so you can keep track of whether you're spending it on the things that are budgeted. And I'm not understanding how that works, or how that money is spent and why it's where it is located in the budget.
Yeah, the spending is all articulated in that, this 97-page document. Every line item there identifies the spending and what is received associated with that spending. And then as with any budget, we have to present how is it funded. And then the funding section of each one of those financial statements, you see the revenue. But I've scrolled to this page here. Let's see what it is. It's page, what is it? My Zoom thing is taking my page numbers away from me.
It doesn't show it on there.
Doesn't show it on there either. Yeah, but the revenue assumptions are right here in this document. As part of the administrative costs, we started the discussion with 5,009,000. You see we have to allocate that 5,000,009 to the SU member districts, which is Vernon and the SD. As part of this 330,000, that is the compilation of all revenue sources to the SU that are not assessments to the districts. So, David, I know you were part of the SU budget development process over the years, and this has been part of the same process for a good long time. Here are the revenue assumptions. And you see this line item here. This is part of that $5 million supportive instruction and administration. For folks that are in the room here, if you want to turn to the front part of our document, we can.
Page 8.
I think so. It's the administrative budget and it's the revenue section. So that's correct. Thank you, Carrie. So if you turn to page 8, you'll see the indirect cost revenue. The total is 99,000. Of that 99,000, 25 of it is that line item you're looking at, David. There is, other federal grants with indirect cost expenditures that essentially come back to the general fund to fund operations.
I see the revenue part of it, but the 25,000 is listed with a bunch of other things that are like FICA and health insurance and dental insurance and things like that are obvious expenditures that you can identify. And what is can you give me some examples of direct of things that $25,000 is spent on? Because it seems like it's in the budget underneath the coach. Item.
No, you're David, it's no different than any one of these revenue dollars. So like, for example, the 238,000 that comes in from Vernon, the 2.9 million that comes from the SD, the $652,000 revenue that comes from the state of Vermont for transportation, the $5,000 in interest, and the 99,000 in indirect. All of that are revenue sources that pay for all of these line item expenses in these budgets. Maybe one other thing I can help illustrate is that when we go back to the one particular indirect, and Paul, I don't know if you remember where some of the other indirects are, but we can point them out. Title I, yeah, and IDEA as well.
Yeah.
But let me just go back to this page 79 here, and also just help make another point for folks that have been working with account numbers. Just notice that right here, David, this 913 is an object code, very different than salary and benefits. So again, I know Christina's here in the room. She knows these things. Folks that have to work with these budgets all the time know these things, but the great state of Vermont has said you will always use a 1 for salaries, a 2 for benefits here, and a 3 for professional services and so on, and you'll use a 913 for indirect expense. That's why it's in the position that it's in. It's not a random assignment. It is in this position because it has to have a 913 code assigned to it.
Let me see if I can, use that same line, or if you could leave it where it was, please.
Sure.
The next part of the 9 of the line, the 465121 refers to the coach.
The 46, not quite. The 465121 refers to the federal grant Title IIA. So that's why all of these codes have that, but they are differentiated by a 141 for salaries and here's a 231 for this is a required retirement benefits mandatory. All of these are basically, statutory or standard deductions. The 211 is health insurance, and we do not differentiate, one employee from another in terms of working conditions, and compensation.
Let me try one more time, is because I understand the things that you're saying. What I don't understand is, and maybe I'll start with the original question. Can you give some examples of what that particular indirect expense amount of money will be spent on? What are some concrete things that will be used for?
Well, where there's a formula that the state requires supervisory unions to apply for the indirect cost rate, and that formula identifies eligible costs, and those eligible costs are basically anything except, Paul, I don't know if you remember the deductions, but it would be anything that is not paid for by some other grant. So it's essentially superintendent's office, the business office, the payrolls expenditure. It's all of the what's called indirect expense, or you might say administrative expense, to operate the system. And the reason why the rate is around 3% is that's typically the cost in public schools to operate, all the administrative responsibilities of, payroll, running buses, running food services, making sure you're compliant with the IRS and reporting, all the financial information to the auditors, doing your banking, and managing cash flow, basic things that we do every day. That's its intent, is to help the business office and the organization support all the activities that go with operating schools.
So
Anything else, Paul, on
if
that?
somebody had to have lunch or had to travel for a workshop, that would be the kind of expense. I mean, I'm just looking for some idea of what it really gets used for. It's not
specific to it's not specific to purchasing a particular thing. It's supporting the category of business operations and grant management.
And it's doing so because there is some indirect cost, literally named that way, that the business office, that the SU incurs as a result of receiving and monitoring and dealing with that grant. So as we get the grant, we get, say, in this case, in Title IIA, about $350,000. Some of that we get to spend on the general operation of the district, because the general operation of the district is incurring expense as a result of getting the money, right? So I think of it as rental on the SU building and people's business office salaries and some of my local salary. And it wouldn't make sense to parse that out into all of those individual little pieces. So it shows up to balance the revenue. It shows up as an expenditure, an indirect expense. Does that make sense?
Well, thanks for trying. And Carrie, thank you for your patience. But I do have one more question about the budget, but I'll wait. It's not about the coach. So if there are other questions about the coach, I'll wait.
Okay. I was hoping to go through one whole budget session without hearing about object codes. So thanks, David. I know Frank was dying to do that. Michelle.
Okay, so I have a technicality question, Frank, because I'm trying 3 years deep, I'm getting more comfortable with this budget. I'm just trying to understand because I'm looking more closely. Thank you for that, David. But so if this position is grant funded and is a revenue, for instance, I know that like our school nurse leader salary was that ended up being grant funded. How come that is in parentheses and shows up as a revenue completely covered and not this other position that's also covered by grant money?
So do you have like a page number or something we can?
Sure, like I'm just looking at page 17 and then 20, because I could remember that was a fully funded position. And it shows all of the benefits are in parentheses, and parentheses means revenue. And so for that to be a grant, I'm just wondering why one shows up as an expense and the other one's showing up as a grant if it's actually grant funded.
So page 17, just go ahead and show me, point out what, oh, and I should share my screen so we can all
Yeah,
follow along.
I'm just trying to understand the formats so that I can, because I have been reading through our hundreds of pages of budget. So if it was a revenue and it's grant funded, I anticipate that it would be in parentheses, like our school nurse leader salary and all of her benefits are in parentheses.
Can you point it out, Michelle, we're on the page?
I'm not on the big one. I'm sorry. I'm on the summaried one that's 22 pages long or so, 24 pages long. So I'm looking at page 17 and 19. It's like it is the Ed Grant program revenue and expense form documentation that we've given specifically. The regular.
Let me find the page.
Want the object code? Can't believe I could actually listen to you right now.
It's just important that we are looking at the same documents. So Michelle, I'm looking at the one document that we handed out, and it was emailed. It's on the website. I'm going to share this document, and then we just got to get to the same page here because there's a lot of pages out there. And then we can make sure we understand your question. So I'm back on the version that's on the website, the document that the board has. Here's the summary document for the supervisory union, and
I'm looking at the regular education grant program revenue and expense document that is it's a summary. It's about 23 pages long. I have a hard copy of it.
This is what you handed out on, this says 11/29.
Yes.
Oh, 11/29.
11/29 back, yeah, so this was the regular ed grants.
Oh, okay, so it is a subset of the document that we're all looking at.
Right.
The inconvenience is that in Google, you can't rotate a page, so I got to keep flipping back here to this other document. No problem. Here we go. We're getting better at it. So I'm back to the document all the folks have here in the room. And now I understand what you're saying. You're looking at a subset, Michelle. And if you were able to find the document, the detailed document that we're all looking at, we would be able to correlate this a little bit easier, but that's okay. Here we go. I'm going back to grants. And then what were you saying, Michelle? What was your page number?
17 has the admin coach position, and page 20 has the nurse leader salary that was grant funded. I just see them presented differently. One looks like an expense, the other one looks like a revenue.
I can't get away from the website versions. I guess that might be it. I love this Zoom stuff. There we go. Okay. Now I got the Zoom thing over here. This Zoom thing is so annoying. Okay, so grants. We're into the grants, and you're on page 20. I'm on page 20 within the grant document, and you are on page 17, Michelle. That's what we're talking about?
Nope, just on page 20. I don't know if they're slightly different. I saw the admin coach position right there where you just had it. So
yeah, sure. Okay.
And I was comparing it. Yeah, I was comparing it to the nurse position that I also recalled was grant funded, and one looks like a revenue and one looks like an expense. And I'm just wondering why it's formatted that way.
So we're on page leader. We're on page 20, and then just give me your line item, and I can respond here. So go ahead. And what line item are you interested in, Michelle?
Can you scroll down a little bit? I'm looking at my screen now. Okay, so Next, right there. So just that position and all of the benefits look like an expenditure.
Yep, so you're talking about this 39,800?
Mhm.
Yep, okay, yep, that's right. These are all expenditures, yes.
Now, Frank, go ahead to page 82.
Okay.
Michelle, tell me if I've got us to the right position. You're talking about the school nurse leader, correct?
Yeah, I'm basically, my understanding is parentheses means it's a plus.
Okay,
It's our,
let's get to 82, and I think I know the issue.
okay.
So is this what you're seeing, Michelle, the school nurse leader and the parentheses 79,000? That's
Yes.
the difference. This job has now been moved elsewhere. This job does not exist in FY '24. It's a 0 in FY '24.
Oh.
Okay, so this is totally different. This is position is now being funded by something else.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
So where is that position? Because that's a fully grant position. What did it get renamed?
This position was funded by a state grant that Rebecca Olmsted was, very, very fortunate to apply for and get the award. So the 79,000 is an expenditure in this current period, and then, as Carrie said, that particular grant, and you see the project code over here, Michelle, the 5490. That grant.
Mhm.
Okay, that grant was a one-year grant, and it is no longer available, and that expenditure is not there. So as Carrie's mentioned, you see 79 or 0 minus 79,000 is negative 79,000. That's what that means. And then you're saying, well, what happened to that position? And I believe that was funded in the ESSER. Yeah, so that is still funded in grants, but it's not in the state grant. It's in the ESSER grant. And the ESSER grant is also in this presentation. We can zip over there if you're interested in seeing where it is.
Sure.
This is why the budgets get longer and longer, because we keep shifting things around, and then you got to account for it in both places.
That's right. It is.
Sorry,
So
regular people have to learn about 60-something million dollars, right? I appreciate your taking your time to help us learn to ask
Sure.
smart questions.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yep, so here we are in the ESSER grant. And we're in this column here in terms of the expenditures for the fiscal year 24. Here's another example of just how significant we are seeing a diminishing resource available to us. 4.3 million this year, 2.1 million is what's available next year. But as we go through these line items, you will see the nurse position being funded in this proposal. And
73.
yeah, there it is right there. The nurse ESSER 3. There's the funding right there, 84,372.
Okay.
So it's still down like so many things are, but
Yes.
it's still funded.
Okay. That helped me. I got a little lost. I totally was missing that was because it's been moved to a new location. So thank you.
Yeah, good question.
So again, we are looking at a $31,253,290 budget. Are there additional questions or comments? Anything from the board before we go to David?
Yeah, I just noticed for the first time that there's a fund balance in the SU budget. And I'm just curious what it gets spent on.
Can you say that again?
I'm curious what it gets spent on. It wouldn't go into ventilation systems and resurfacing of.
There's a
of,
line item in here,
parking.
isn't there, for the fund balance?
Yeah, the fund balance is just like for the district, the school district. It's a general reserve. It essentially serves as the cash flow for the July, August, September period when operations are underway and revenues are not readily available, so you avoid borrowing. And then fund balance is also used as a reduction to assessments over time, just like we do with the SD. So no different, David, than what it's available for with the school district.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Other questions? Is anyone ready to make a motion that we approve? And it is the $31 million figure?
That's right. Yeah, the total there, 31,253, 290.
So the motion would be to approve the WSESU FY24 proposed budget in the amount of $31,253,290. Is anyone ready to make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Kelly. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Liz. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing the FY24 SU budget in the amount of $31,253,290, say aye.
Aye.
I heard one. Any more? Any nays or abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, we've got two aye. Let's do a roll call. Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Kelly, I heard from you. How do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Michelle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And Liz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Yay, now y'all can be heard. All right, we have a final budget. So now again, it goes to our local districts. And we get to have fun in January doing that. No new business. I do have some upcoming business I want to warn the board about, and I will send you all an email. I'm going to get you the board norms we talked about so we can start having those discussions in January under what operating norms we will work under. Please begin thinking about summer retreat. So far, some items I've got is just at one point we talked about farm to school. We've talked about central office. We've talked about student voice, things like that. So this is for Mark to think of. This is for board members to think of. We need to start planning sooner rather than later. And we need to be working on developing a multi-year calendar so that we can execute, plan, and repeat. Our next meeting is January 11th. Any final business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Liz. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All those in favor of adjourning for the year, say aye.
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 Aye.